Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, I own a beachfront property and my new neighbor Karen claims that she owns the entire beach, my property included. She ends up building illegal small houses on the beach and extending them onto my private property. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The title story starts like this. I love owning beachfront property because for me, it feels like I'm part of the ocean. I live right off of a pretty big beach, and while it is a very public beach, each property owner has some beach that is on their private land. For me, it was never an issue because most people never wanted to wander close to the homes on their beach visits. Plus, the lifeguards have signs telling people where the public area ends and that they are about to walk onto private property. I'm not some crazy get off my lawn type of guy, and I'm fairly relaxed. Of course, if somebody has a beach ball or towel fly away and land on my property, I'm not gonna chase them off for trying to get it. At the same time though, I probably would not ever let people set up for the day in my backyard because it just makes me feel uncomfortable. So then this Karen moved in next door, and that was when things started to go downhill. She kept making comments about how it was great she got a house on the beach and loved the space that she had. I just assumed she meant it was nice to wander the water without any real thought or planning. What I didn't realize is that she had something far worse planned, and I wish that I didn't have to witness it. You might be wondering why I named her Karen for this story before she actually did anything wrong, and that is because I knew right away what kind of person she was. She would complain about sand always getting dragged into her house, sand on a beachfront property. Plus, she would make comments talking about how awful it was when people would block her view and they should not be allowed to go wherever they wanted. About 2 months later, I finally understood what she meant by that original comment when small huts started getting built on the beach. None were too close to the water, but instead almost right up against the property lines and then within them. At first, I actually made a complaint to the city thinking that it was the park committee or something that made these for people on the public beach, blocking the view and privacy from all the beachfront owners. They told me that nothing like that was commissioned and they would come and investigate when they could. Looking around, the only place none of these huts seemed to be was by Karen's home. Please take my advice right now to never try and go talk to a Karen. Or think that they can be reasoned with. Because the truth is, they simply can't, and this is a perfect example of that as I made that mistake and tried speaking to her. Me, did you put up all of these huts? Karen, yes, don't they look fantastic? People will be lining up to try and rent one of them for the day. Finally some organization around here. Me, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if putting huts on your property and renting them out is legal. But I can say that you have put them on my property and the rest of the beach. Nobody is gonna be obligated to pay you anything for them. Karen, I didn't put any on your property. I put them on the beach, and since I own the entire beach, I should be getting the profit for the huts. I see people every single day walking and spending the day on the beach, none of which are giving me any kind of entrance fee. I don't know who owed it before, but they made my job a lot harder. Me, I think you might have misunderstood me. A portion of the beach by your house is yours, but the rest is public property. They are allowed to use it and you cannot make them pay you anything. Karen, are you slow in the head? Don't you know what beachfront property means? I paid for it, and that means I paid for the beach as well. If you don't like a hut near your house, then you shouldn't have gotten a house next to a beach owner. She closed her door in my face, and before I could say anything else, and knew that it was not gonna end well for her. She even put up signs at the hut about the cost and to come to her door to pay for it. I did everything I could reporting the huts and could only wait for somebody to come and handle the issue. While waiting for that, I counted 5 times that Karen had called the police on people for using the huts without paying. And to be honest, I would not really care about all of this if Karen minded her own illegal business and built these huts on some random beach to hustle some money. However, the main issue here was, though, that some of these huts were literally on property that belongs to me, and I don't really condone such behavior. I did not hear the conversation, but can assume they told her that they cannot charge people for the public beach. It did eventually get inspected, and Karen was ordered to remove all of the huts and told exactly where her property line was. She didn't want to believe the city officials that came to speak to her and removed exactly 0 huts in the time she was given. The city started hitting her with heavy fines for each hut that she still hadn't removed. It escalated to the point that she was going to get taken to court and sued unless she removed the huts. Since again I was not directly involved in the matter at this point, I don't know what finally pushed her over and had her getting the huts removed. This is when I became relevant to the story once more, since one of the huts, as I said before, was on my property. I could have made life easy for her and let her simply remove it without any hassle. I was not gonna be nice and let her just do that because I felt like she needed to learn a little more of a lesson. Now, the order for removal was regarding the huts on the public beach. This did not extend to private properties. I refused to let the huts be removed as I had the right to not let anything on my property be tampered with. Even though she paid the money to have this hut built, she didn't have the right to remove it or even go near it now that it was on my property. I decided that I was going to keep it for myself, and I wish I had the words to describe the look on her face. She was so angry that after all of her planning and money wasted, I was the only one benefiting from it. The neighbor who she wanted to insult was now going to get a free beach hut without having to pay a cent or do any work. It felt like if you found free money just lying on the street, except the complete a-hole got karma from it. One of two other neighbors liked my idea and also kept their free huts courtesy of Karen. The only other time I heard anything of this was once when she tried to get us to give her money for the huts. I decided to ask her the same question she asked me about being slow in the head. She turned red in shame from that comment and since then never tried talking to me again. I sadly will never know what or who gave her the idea that buying that house meant she would own the entire beach. And yeah, ripe stars, I guess if I ever had a house near a beach, I would be so upset if some entitled Karen would try to move in next to me and then claim that the entire damn beach belongs to her. Imagine being in such a position to afford something like this, but then you don't have any influence on what kind of neighbor you get. Anyway, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to leave a comment and maybe even like the video, because that would help me tremendously. Either way, the next one is titled Karen's Kid Was Drowning. I was a head lifeguard at a water park for 4 years, so I have definitely seen my fair share of entitled parents. But one entitled mother almost let her child drown because of it. The cast is me as supervisor, EM entitled mom, and C child. At the park I work at, we have a bunch of slides, a wave pool, and one regular swimming pool that has these little plastic water slides that empty into it that we also use for training. The shallow end is about 3 feet and the deep end is 10, but the water slides empty into the 4/5 foot end. A lot of people underestimate the depth, mostly parents and young children, and find themselves having to swim back to the wall instead of standing. I'm only 5'2", so even I have to swim from that slide. Because of the depth, we require everyone under 48 inches to wear a life jacket no matter where they are in the pool. This, by the way, is a state law. As you can imagine, a lot of parents are not happy with this. And though we have free life jackets as a courtesy, on very busy days we run out. But our biggest issue comes from the parents who are convinced their child is the next Michael Phelps. On this particular day, it was fairly busy and I had enlisted a couple of my lifeguards to look for life jackets that were left in the cabanas, bathrooms, etc. instead of hung back up. A little kid came running to the pool and I noticed his height about 2 inches too short, poor little guy. Me, hey buddy, I'm so sorry but you cannot swim in this pool without a life jacket. Entitled mother walking up behind him, oh it's alright, he can swim. Me, unfortunately because of the state law, I cannot let him in through the water without a life jacket. EM, he's on the swim team, he's perfectly fine. Me, I'm sorry ma'am, it's not our rule, it's a law. She rolls her eyes and huffs off but manages to find her kid a life jacket. So then I take my eyes off them and pay more attention to my zone. Regular irritated parent, no big deal. Fast forward about 10 minutes and I see this kid climb up the slide. It's the child, so I whistle at him and take him to his mother and again say, ma'am, I understand he can probably swim, but he cannot go down the slide or go in the pool without a life jacket. Entitled mother, absolutely not. I'm not putting that death trap back on my child. Me, I understand, but he can swim perfectly fine. He's on a swim team. He's fine. Me, beginning to get irritated. I legally cannot let your child touch that water if he doesn't have a life jacket on. EM, no, it was choking him. I will not have my child choking and dying. Goodbye. I almost cracked up, but she had walked off dragging her kid with her, so I rolled my eyes and did not think anything of it. Every 20 to 30 minutes we rotate positions as lifeguards to keep our eyes fresh and our energy up. So our lovely entitled mother decided to wait until we rotated to try and bring her child back. Unfortunately for her, I had just moved to the other side of the pool. About 10 minutes into the rotation, I notice a distressed swimmer swimming but clearly struggling and barely moving. It's the stage before active drowning, about 5 feet from the slide. I whistle, jump in, yank the swimmer onto my tube, and lo and behold, it's the same child. But now I am mad. But not as mad as EM. She is sitting in a lounge chair on the side of the pool, not paying attention at all. Side note, parents, lifeguards are not your babysitters. I help the kid out and drag him to his mother. Me, ma'am, this is the 3rd time I've tried to talk to you. Your child almost drowned in the pool because he… EM, horrified. Did you just touch my kid? Me, I rescued your child. EM, I did not give you permission to save my child. You had no right to touch him. You should have asked me first before just grabbing him like that. Me, I didn't see you anywhere. You were not watching your child, so I had to make a decision. EM, yes I was. He was swimming fine. How dare you save him just to prove your point? Just admit that you're on a little lifeguard power trip. I want to speak to your supervisor. I love when people want to speak to a supervisor because at this water park, they are almost always on the lifeguard side. So my supervisor came over. EM, this lifeguard won't let my child swim in the pool. She gave him a life jacket that was choking him and then dragged him out of the pool without my permission. S, your child is too short. EM, but he's on a swim team. If he can swim, he shouldn't have to wear one. Now, I'd been having this same conversation over and over for about 45 minutes at this point. My supervisor asked her to give him a minute and move to the side to talk to me. Sometimes if the children are near the correct height, we let them swim if there are no adequate life jackets and they seem like strong swimmers and have a reliable adult with them. So my supervisor decides to extend this privilege to AM. EM, thank you. I cannot believe it took this long for you to see sense. I hope she gets written up at the very least for ruining my son's day. S, she was doing her job, but I'm sorry it made things difficult for you. EM goes back to chatting with her friends and her son runs happily back to the slide where he nearly drowned once already. And slides down it, and sure enough he starts drowning. But I'm not allowed to rescue her son because he can swim right. He's on a swim team. He is great. I'm actually about to jump in when my supervisor stops me and gets the mom's attention. S, ma'am, your son is drowning. EM, rolling her eyes and walking over to the edge of the pool. He is not. He is swimming fine. By this point, the son has moved from distressed swimming to active drowning. His mouth is bobbing up and down over the water, his eyes are wide, arms desperately grabbing for something, but he is not moving anywhere. And no, none of the other patrons noticed because they were all doing their own thing and drowning is very quiet and uneventful. Now I'm getting antsy. I don't want a kid drowning on my watch even if I don't have permission from the parent to rescue them. EM's friend comes over to see what's going on and gets wide-eyed and gasps. And the EM falls into hysterics. EM, what are you doing? Don't just stand there, do something, save him! Despite my now anger, I need no second bidding. I jump in, grab the poor kid for a second time and pull him out. Supervisor, please put a life jacket on him the next time or take him to the children's area where he can swim wherever he likes without one. Did not even say thank you. Just shot me a dirty look, signed the incident report and hauled her shivering child away. Edit, a lot of people are doubting the legitimacy of this story, which, fair, if someone is doing something illegal and life-threatening, law enforcement should be called. That being said, on a day when our relatively small water park is filled with 6,000 people, situations like this end up being the least of our concerns. As upsetting as it is, it was handled. The child was safe the entire time. He struggled for a bit, but he took in no water, he didn't slip below the surface of the water, and we sent him to a medic just to be safe. I've seen dozens of supervisors, lifeguards and swim teachers do very similar things. If I kicked someone out of the park, which I cannot do, a supervisor or my manager has to do that. Every time they endangered someone or even did something illegal and endangering, I wouldn't have time to actually ensure people don't drown. As crazy as that sounds, anyway. The EM did not bother us again and the child will have learned to be more careful when he swims and she did not complain because she had no grounds to. Edit again, so sorry, just want to clear up a couple of more things. Legally, I had no right to jump in the second time if the parent told me no. It is similar to refusing medical assistance at a hospital. A lot of people are thinking I did not jump because the parent was being rude and I was being petty, but I did not jump because number 1, my supervisor told me not to, and number 2, I was legally obligated not to. If I had jumped without the parent's permission, she could have sued the park and could have won. It's dumb, I agree, but we are technically following the law here. I saved her child once and then she explicitly told me not to save them again. And by the way, for the record, regardless of the law, I would have saved the child anyway if it got to a certain point and the EM still had not given us permission. I don't care if my park gets sued or has to shut down, or I never get another job. I don't want someone's death on my hands. And here, Ripe Stars, that has to be one of the dumbest Karens we have ever seen. She is getting outraged because a lifeguard puts his hands on her child even though he just wanted to save her kid from drowning. These Karens are just getting more and more stupid. I am wondering if we ever come across a stupidity cap or something. And the next one is titled, "You almost made me lose my job. Now you will lose your immunity." And guys, this is, to make matters a bit more interesting, a little revenge story that has nothing to do with neighbors. Anyway, as the title suggests, this story is about a person with diplomatic immunity. Before I dive into the story, first a little something to note about these diplomats. Number 1, yes, they do have immunity, but to an extent. They cannot be prosecuted in the hosting country unless their home country waives the immunity. For example, they can drive over the speed limit and when they get a ticket, nothing happens. However, they need to respect the host country's laws and regulations. Number 2, they are not exempted from any security check. When they want to enter a building where a security check is mandatory before entering, they have to undergo that check or they are refused access. And yes, this is important for the story. Number 3, only their diplomatic luggage is exempted from any security check. These luggages are sealed with an official stamp and the diplomat needs to have the correct documents with them signed and stamped by their embassy. Also, for the sake of the story to make sense, some of these diplomats are in the possession of an airport badge. In order for them to have access at some parts of the airport, for example to collect someone from the gate or guide someone to their gate without having to buy a ticket to gain access, they have a different color, green/bluish in my airport, than the regular airport badges, which are white. Long intro I know, but here we go. This happened in January 2020. I was already working as a supervisor. I sat behind my desk doing my admin work when my fellow supervisor said there was a long queue at our staff lane. We were very busy at that moment and I didn't have anyone available to help out, so I went out there and supported my colleagues at the staff lane. I positioned myself as a third person at our WTMD walk-through metal detector. Every staff member needs to show me their airport badge when they pass their WTMD. I just check the details on there and then they continue on their merry way. Things went smoothly and we were almost through most of the queue after about 10 minutes. Cue our above-mentioned diplomat. It is only fitting to call her Karen. I spotted her skipping the queue and walked straight towards us. Her green/bluish badge at the ready, I stood in front of her and said, "Good afternoon, madam. How may I help you today?" Without looking at me, she just waved her badge in my face and tried to continue on her way. My colleague blocked the entrance of the WTMD and asked the same thing. Karen then said, still waving her badge, "Move out of my way, you idiot. I'm a diplomat." Colleague: "Can't do, madam. You need to put all your belongings in a tray first and have them go through the scanner. Then you need to walk through this gate," pointing at the WTMD, "so you can continue your way." Karen: "Are you deaf? I'm a diplomat. Get me a supervisor now." My colleague pointed at me and all I did was smile and wave. Madagascar, anyone? No? Never mind. Karen: "Tell this idiot he needs to let me through now. I'm a diplomat. I'm exempted from any security check." Me: "Well, first of all, you're not exempted in any way, shape or form. You are supposed to know this. Secondly, you are also not exempted from following the queue. And lastly, my colleague is not an idiot. If this is the way you're going to treat me or any of my colleagues, you will be refused access." I then point my hand towards the back of the queue. Keep that in mind. Karen starts screaming, "So you're an idiot as well? I'm a diplomat, dumbass." She then took a deep breath and looked up to the ceiling and back at me with a smirk and says, "I will get you, and that fat dude." Nods her head to my colleague. "You just wait, you haven't seen the last of me." She then also screamed,
How dare you treat me this way?
She didn't scream it in an angry manner, but more in an emotional way. Also important later. I thought maybe she had a bad day and did not say anything from that point forward as she walks away crying. Later that day, my operational manager OM called me in his office. He told me that there was a complaint against me, wonder who it is from. He said that Karen told the airport I treated her poorly and threatened to physically remove her from the airport if she didn't got out of my sight. Now I know why she started crying. OP then showed me the CCTV footage which had confirmed her story in a way. When the footage showed me pointing my hand to the queue, OM said, "This is where she said you threatened to assault her." I laughed and shook my head. I told my side of the story, even commentating live while we rewatched the CCTV. OM said he believes me, but that the airport never received my side of the story as I didn't write a report. I also didn't notify my security inspector of the incident, which made me look suspicious to the airport. The airport wanted OM to sanction me in a way he seemed fit. They wanted to take away my airport badge at first because the complaint came from the embassy itself. She probably left out the fact she tried to bypass security. But OM also acknowledged that I probably just didn't have time yet to write a report, which was true of course, and that he would deal with me. He told me he would keep a close eye on me and I should report everything from here on out. So yeah, I almost lost my job because of this Karen, which was great. Now on to the revenge. When I was passing through staff lane not long after that, I saw her again. She was on her way to the staff entrance again. I avoided eye contact and I walked through the WTMD and then thought, screw it. I was not in the wrong here. So I described her to my colleague Ben as he was verifying my badge and said that she is a troublemaker, so to just let her come through the WTMD, greet her, ask her badge and tap me on the shoulder. He said, "Sure thing, chief." She walks towards the WTMD bag and all and passes through. Meanwhile, I was standing over my tray getting my wallet and keys, etc., not once looking at my surroundings. Ben then tapped me on the shoulder and said, "OP, can you look at this?" I took the badge and turned around facing my colleague. Me? Is she standing to the side? When Ben turned around to verify, I quickly ripped off the hologram sticker. Without this, the badge is invalid. I looked at Karen, I put my hand on Ben's shoulder and thanked him. Me? "Hello again, madam. Welcome. I just need to verify your badge if you don't mind, so you can be on your way in just a second." Karen tasted victory.
Finally you have learned some manners.
Me? Oh dear, I'm sorry, but your badge is invalid." Karen?
Excuse me?
Me? "Yes, look, your hologram is completely gone." I then looked up to her and then quickly turned my head back and forth between her and the WTMD several times. I then turned my head around to look at the back of our checkpoint and then back at her. Karen?
What are you doing?
I pointed behind my back to the end of the checkpoint saying, "Did you just come from over there?" Karen shouts,
"No, dumbass, I came from over there."
Points at the entrance. Me? "Can you please calm down, madam?" I lifted my hands and took a step back. "I can sort this out for you. Do you mind standing to the side there?" She complied and I asked for her diplomatic passport. Said I needed it to go run it through my system to validate it. She handed it over and told me to hurry up. I went to watch her as I went to my desk. According to our SOP, standard operation procedures, the only options I had was either A. Refuse access myself like I did before. B. Go to my inspector, explain the situation and be done with it. He would send Karen back for a new badge and probably would have forced her to go through security or escort her out. Problem solved. However, I already had a plan and it was already set in motion. I first called Airport PD and said that I have a female here who is refusing to be checked, claiming to be a diplomat. They asked if the inspector was around and I said I have not seen him. They would send out a patrol immediately. Great. Another colleague who returned from her break was waiting to be put to work, so I ordered her to replace Ben and sent him to my desk. A minute or so later, Ben came to me saying that Karen was getting frustrated and he asked me what was going on. I briefly told him what happened before and I informed him of my plan. Now, Ben was a new guy, recently just started, but he was a cool guy. He was a bouncer before he came to the airport, so he knows how these Karens can be. He liked the plan and said, "You know what, Chief? I wasn't sure if a diplomat was exempted from a security check or not. Honest mistake, sorry." He winked and smirked at me. I told him to start typing up this incident report as I headed back to Karen. Meanwhile, the police arrived and I handed over the passport and the badge. Me, this lady refuses to go through security and she threatened me for the second time today, saying I would lose my job. She also gave a false statement to the airport about me, risking me to lose my job. I was speaking in my language, so Karen didn't understand a word. Me, if you rewatch the CCTV footage from this hour, you will see that she aggressively came at me after pointing out that her badge was invalid. I also didn't see where she came from, and when I asked if she passed security, she started freaking out. Officer number 1, "Okay, we will take her with us and explain what's going on." Officer number 2 informs Karen that she needs to come with them, and she just gasped at the officer and looked at me in disbelief. Me, "Great, thank you. Oh, by the way, I want to press charges against her for slandering me." Officer number 1, "Sure, just follow us." Karen started to get frustrated but had no option then to follow us, as we had all her documents. I radioed my fellow SPV saying I'm going with the police and it would take a while. When I returned a few moments later, Ben showed me his report. It was perfect. I typed up mine and sent both reports to OM. I informed him that I filed a complaint against her with the police. I returned home smiling. OM's response the next day was that he heard of the incident and he notified corporate, who in turn filed a complaint through their legal team against Karen. The result? I never saw Karen again at the airport. A few months ago, May, OM informed me that our complaints were noted by the court and had been sent to Karen's home country. The charges were slander and attempting to enter a security restricted area and bypassing the security. Turns out, Karen was just an assistant, specifically a driver for some higher ranked diplomats. Basically meaning that she did not even have the same privileges or immunities as a real diplomat has. She lost her diplomatic passport, persona non grata, and has been sent back to her country. The airport also apologized to me, not personal. OM only said that I had to follow the SOP and go to the inspector first. To which I just replied, "Hey, holds up hands. You just said I needed to report everything, and I did." The inspector was on the phone at that moment and it looked important, which was a lie. OM just shook his head and we still laugh about it till this day. And you know, Ripe Stars, I just love these revenge/malicious compliance stories about people who pretend to be someone they are not and then try to use that kind of status to belittle others, only to then get a very healthy dose of revenge in return. The next one is titled "Entitled Neighbor's Husband Divorces Her." Before I start, I want to say thank you so much for the positive feedback from my other story. Now, as many of you have requested, I will tell the story about how Karen's husband left her. Like I mentioned in my other story, Karen has a bit of a criminal record. It started with smaller charges such as disorderly conduct or resisting arrest, some of which landed her in jail for a bit. She often did things you would expect of a Karen, you know, like getting into arguments with neighbors for trivial reasons or calling the police for no reason. However, later on she did some more dangerous crimes like DUI or reckless driving. One time she got into an accident because she was texting and driving while her 6-month-old grandson was in the car. Not sure exactly how long this landed her in jail, but when she got back things had changed. While Karen was in jail, her husband was trying to get them to file for divorce. He was a pretty nice guy and was mostly tolerable towards her crazy actions, but her putting their grandson in danger was the final straw. Not really sure how divorces work, but it seemed like things were final because the husband has gotten a new girlfriend, Anna. As one can imagine, Karen lost her crap when she learned of this. This happened on the 4th of July last year. My family was sitting on our back deck eating ice cream and talking. It was almost dark, so we were waiting for the fireworks to start, and that is when we heard Karen storm out of the house screaming,
Anna, F you!
We heard her yell. It was so loud and it took me by shock. Following her, the husband and Anna walk out of the house. I would not say that we were eavesdropping on them, more like we were curious. From our deck we had a perfect view of what was about to happen. Karen is screaming at the top of her lungs about how she could not believe he was leaving her and how he is a terrible person for leaving her to fend for herself. Karen is currently unemployed since she had just came out of jail, and she also has no family living nearby, so she's basically on her own without her husband. The husband tries his best to calm her down and tells her that he has given her so many chances, but she keeps messing up and that he's had enough of her going in and out of jails. He says that they should move in since it is clearly not working. This only angers Karen more. This time, her screaming is directed at Anna. Karen goes on to call her a bunch of insulting names and tries attacking her, but the husband blocks her. Karen then grabs a few keys from her pocket and pops the tires on Anna's car. She then starts kicking and punching the car, leaving a few dents. It took the combined efforts of Anna, the husband and their daughter to stop her, and even then they could barely hold her down. My dad called the police a while ago and they are now showing up. One of them tries to calm her down, but she just attacks him. I am pretty sure he tased her. After Karen was contained, they started interviewing the husband, Anna, and my parents. This was her final defeat, and I am glad she finally got what she deserved. I am friends with the daughter, and a few months later I asked what happened to Karen. She told me that she got put in jail again, big surprise, and the divorce was finalized. Once she got out, she lost custody of her. The husband was nice enough to not make her pay for Anna's car repairs because she was already broke. She had to beg her older son, who is 28, to let her stay at his house until she could afford her own place. Mind you, it was his child that she got injured in the car accident. If I were him, I would have shut the door in her face and never looked back. But he's a lot nicer than I would be to her, and he let her stay. Karen's ex-husband and Anna continue to live next to us, and things have been a lot more peaceful. I'm really not missing getting yelled at by her for something stupid. The two of them are actually getting married next month, a small wedding at their house due to the virus. I would like to see the look on her face when she learns that that same effing witch that she had insulted was marrying her ex-husband. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.